So good morning, everyone. I thought that this was an appropriate photo to demonstrate really that, Ericsson, we view not only what we do within the cities and IoT and all of these new technologies that are coming from 3G, 4G, and 5G now. Many of you, I recognize many faces from our Taste of Barcelona over the last couple of weeks. And we're here today to talk to you a little bit more around Ericsson's view and how we bring some of our experiences from a technology for good perspective to the market and to New Zealand and in a rural context. Let me see if I can get this working. So the agenda that we'll share with you this morning is really around what we stand for at Ericsson. Ericsson is quite an old company, 100 plus years old, and as many of you probably know, so many people I meet here in New Zealand say, "Oh, I've worked for Ericsson." I think half of the country of New Zealand's worked for Ericsson in the telecommunications industry. And then talk to you a little bit more around the Technology for Good initiative and our corporate sustainability initiatives that we have going. Giving some examples around what we do around quality of life, improvements and rural concepts, public safety examples, and then I'm going to turn over to my partner in crime, Nigel, and he's going to talk to you a little bit more about the technology that enables all of that. So a lot of what we do around our corporate sustainability is linked very closely to the global goals, the UN global goals and sustainability initiatives. So we not only, make mobility, broadband, IoT, and cloud solutions, but we basically align those to meeting some of these sustainability goals. The global goals, as you see on the top line, around no poverty, zero hunger, clean water, affordable energy, et cetera, and then basically the business opportunities that enables. So it's no longer just corporate for corporate sake and making profit, but giving back to our communities and partnering with our communities as well as our carrier partners, the MNOs, and governments around the world to actually improve and make sustainable efforts to get to those goals on a global basis. So I'm going to be talking to you today about, really a couple of them, which is, the basic connectivity goal, as well as the connected environmental monitoring and clean water initiatives. And linking to that, of course, is public safety. So as I mentioned, we take this very seriously. We aim to be responsible corporate citizens in the world today, and we link our initiatives through innovating technology for good. We're a responsible business. We link our own business to these goals, but what I'm going to talk to you today is really around the energy, environment, climate action examples that we have globally. And Internet for All. Now, I'm not going to be coming and talking to you about, RBI1, okay? Our focus is on RBI2, and our focus is on mobile and how we can enable even the more remote parts of New Zealand to become connected and to become part of the digital economy. So one of these examples that I'll share with you, and I look at my examples and I think, oh, it's so North American centric. That was not the intent. I come to you today speaking with my North American accent, so the intent was not necessarily to come with only North American examples, but these are really impressive examples of what we're doing together with AT&T. In the U.S., in Atlanta, Georgia, around their clean water initiatives, as well as in Ottawa, Canada. So I'll play a video. They explain it even better than I could. So.
Hi, I'm Charles Dasher, and I'm out at CES 2016, and I'd like to introduce you to connected water. In the network society, sustainability is really important to Ericsson. And so what we've done is we've actually created very low-cost sensors that can read water quality measurements and transmit them to the cloud using LTE power-saving mode. This is a game changer. We're able to detect water quality measurements such as turbidity, conductivity, and even the presence of laundry detergent in river water, which is really important as an indicator for E. coli, which is a really big health hazard. We combine that with LTE power saving mode, which is a brand new standard, and Ericsson is the forefront at bringing this in. It's a game changer. We have a very, very, very long battery life with a very low battery requirement. And so this allows us to do real-time perpetual water quality measurements in a way that's never been done before. And what this is going to do for the world is bring clean water to everyone. Clean water is so important. It's such an important human right, really. And as Ericsson is at the forefront of the UN initiatives and sustainability and technology for good, this is really going to bring about change and a better way of living for millions of people around the world.
On to the next example, mission critical. So many times in the news here, in the media in New Zealand, we hear about all of these agencies that don't have connectivity, or people are not able to communicate with the first responders when they most need it. And we think that's a big problem we'd like to be able to solve, and we want to partner with the mobile providers, RCG and the community, in order to actually solve some of those big problems here in New Zealand. So we'll talk to you a little bit about what we're doing in the U.S. around FirstNet with mission critical LTE and public safety. And then Nigel will talk a little bit more about some of the architectures and some of the technology that's behind that, and that makes that reality.
When disaster strikes and lives are at stake, cries for help cannot go unanswered. Our first responders are critical in those most vulnerable of times. Yet first responders have lacked a common, reliable means of ensuring strong communications when they are needed most. Until now. FirstNet is the first dedicated national communications network for America's first responders. Born from lessons learned during 9/11 and Hurricane Katrina, FirstNet is a fast and reliable nationwide network with prioritized usage for the public safety community, our police, our firefighters, emergency medical services personnel, and others critical to the mission at hand. This is the network that they've been asking for. So no matter where they live or where they work, the brave women and men who keep us safe will have the power to better communicate with each other, clearly, easily, and with priority on a dedicated broadband network. FirstNet and AT&T will modernize the way our first responders communicate, helping responders easily and reliably share information about what's happening on the scene as it unfolds before they get there. Exchanging videos, photos, and information of events. Connect through wearables and even relay biometric data that can help them monitor their team's physical conditions. We are AT&T, and we are honored to deliver the future of public safety for the United States. To learn more about FirstNet, visit att.com/firstrespondernews.
Thanks, Theresa. So I'll talk a little bit about the technology that's enabling some of these use cases that Theresa's shown up just now. So when I've put this slide together, so it's talking about what's actually possible today and what's possible in the future from a different use case perspective. It's sort of analogous to if you look back at, say, 15, 20 years ago, when you had, who remembers the bad old days of WAP? WAP on GSM, for example, right? Do you think you can do YouTube on WAP? I don't think so, right? So it's the same thing. It's the same underlying technology that's been improved over time that enables a better experience for users, for example, right? So YouTube would never have worked on WAP, but now with mobile broadband, it's definitely possible. So for those who don't remember what WAP was, it's basically a really bad version of the internet on not even a smartphone, a feature phone of some sort. So if you look at this slide here, I mean, so let's take healthcare as an example. So Ernie talked about healthcare as being an important area. So if you look at the current column, basically, you've got, you could have potentially connected doctors and patients. So connecting remote doctors and patients, whether it's a Skype session or, even as simple as a voice call today, depending on where the patient happens to be. So that's one scenario, but then the next leap ahead is, actual monitoring, real-time, some sort of real-time monitoring and e-care of some sort, and making sure, say, patients are doing what they're supposed to do, so they don't necessarily have to go in and visit a doctor itself. And down the track, we're talking about things like robotic surgery, or potentially a surgeon, a highly skilled surgeon, could be supervising somebody who's not as skilled, potentially in a remote location. So what's underlying all these different areas? So the point is that in the current column, it's basically there are standards and there are technologies today that enable use cases today. We don't have to wait for whether it's 5G or whatever coming along. There are capabilities in the 3G network, 4G network, things like CAT-M or narrowband IoT, or just your standard 4G network as well, that enable these use cases. Down the track, we have gigabit LTE, so we're talking about 1 gigabit per second speeds. Ernie mentioned earlier that New Zealand has leaped ahead of Australia when it comes to telecommunications. So there you go. That's another thing that you can do in the mobile network space. Leap ahead again. And Telstra has recently come out in Australia and said we're going to do 2 gigabits per second over the air now, and that's going to happen sometime during this year is what I'm seeing. And this is even before 5G comes along. So by the time 5G comes along, it's going to be like, so what's left for 5G to do? So it's going to be things like latency, reduce the round trip times. That's going to become important as well. Underlying all these technologies from a mobile connectivity point of view, there's, you need to have the right sort of platforms that enables all that connectivity. So, connecting your devices to an end user. And I know Michael is keen to talk about that when he comes on next. So, Ericsson's got a platform, it's called the IoT accelerator, and we basically connect those devices. So, for example, whether it's sheep or cows or whatever it is, or patients, or devices on your wrist, whatever it is, to back into the cloud and connecting them back into the right service provider as well. So that's what the platform is there for. But what you will see coming into the future, it's not just about there's going to be a mobile tower and somewhere in the cloud you will have an application running. It's going to be different horses for courses, basically. So as an example, you might want, if you're in hospital and you're running robotic surgery, and you need a very quick response time. So you need a version of, or your application running most likely in the hospital itself. So you can basically deploy a virtualized instance of the cloud in the hospital right next to the radio network itself. So you don't have to go all the way back into, say, your internet provider's network and back out again. So the round trip time is really quick. So that's one example up the top. But coming down where you have, say, your so this one, which is your regular internet type connection, where you don't need that that really quick round trip time. So then you can have your normal network as well. And the vision and the reality will become where it will be one network, but then you will be able to run multiple instances of use cases as well within that network. And in telecom speak, it's called network slicing. So you have these virtualized instances of the network, but they're all running within the same network itself. And I just wanted to show you this last slide on the number of IoT connections per region. So that's actually come out recently in our biannual study called the Ericsson Mobility Report. And the main takeaway from this one is that the number of IoT devices that Ericsson has predicted has actually suddenly doubled. And the main driver for this is basically because of the Chinese market. So compared to 6 months ago, we've actually gone out and said, we actually think this is actually going to double compared to what it was 6 months ago now. And why is this important for New Zealand? I think it's important is because New Zealand, aligns to global standards in order to leverage that ecosystem. That's the way you can get, connectivity out there and, a lower cost point you can tap into as well from a market perspective. And just to summarize, Ericsson, as Theresa said, we've mapped our portfolio to sustainability goals that has been defined by the UN. And we do work quite closely with our partners, our mobile network operators, to ensure that we can deliver those goals, whether it's in places like Australia, New Zealand, or even we work in areas where they have been hit by whether it's famines or floods or whatever it is. We do have a technology for good department itself. And then finally, the underlying technology that's going to underpin everything is basically 4G, 5G, IoT. These are the three key areas that in the next few years that will sort of define where the industry goes. Thank you.